Hello, I'm Paul, and this is Paul Plays with Fire. Welcome! On today's show, we're going to be cooking a tri-tip steak low and slow in the pellet smoker, and then we're going to be finishing that steak by searing it in cast iron in our Blackstone pizza oven. We'll be serving that tri-tip on a ciabatta roll with pineapple corn salsa. Oh boy, stick around, this is going to be great. To get our tri-tip ready for the pellet smoker, we simply rub the whole thing with a mixture of sea salt, cracked black pepper, and garlic powder. We'll let that rub sit on the steak for 2 to 3 hours or so, then it'll be ready to go. Our tri-tip steak has been very well seasoned. The pellet smoker is preheated to 250 degrees. All the hard work is done. All we're gonna do is put that big piece of meat on the grill and wait for about an hour. Oh, that's right, we gotta put a temperature probe in it. We'll put a temperature probe in it and we'll make sure that we're right in about the thickest part of the meat, right about here. Yeah, right about there. And then when it gets to 125 degrees, we'll take it out and then we'll put it on this guy, our cast iron pan, that will have been preheating in this guy. And we'll get a really nice sear that way, I guarantee it. So, here we go. But there we go, just that simple, nothing to it. This truly is the easy part. Just sit back and wait for a little bit, and we'll see you then. Okay, now we're gonna make our roasted pineapple corn salsa. And we've got our pineapple that we cooked on the pellet grill earlier. We've got a serrano pepper. We've got about half a red onion. We'll see how that goes. And we've got a whole tomato. We've got some cilantro, and we've got some limes. And we also have a couple ears of corn that we roasted earlier. Boy, that corn smells good. So, first step, and I've done this many ways, but I think this is probably about the best way you're gonna find to do it. I use a bowl. I cut my corn over a bowl because it gives it someplace to go. And the other trick about cutting corn off the cob is you don't really want to scrape, because then you get into that bad stuff in the bottom, and nobody wants that. It just gets stuck in your teeth, and it's better to leave a little bit behind than it is to scrape the cob. And now we'll go to our other ingredients. We'll start with our tomato, because I think we're going to use all of that. We're just going to dice it up as small as we can into salsa-sized chunks. It's a sharp knife and a firm tomato, so it holds up pretty well. We'll put that in the bowl and see how it looks. Maybe we'll just quit there for now. We don't need that much salsa. Work on our pineapple next. Once again, we'll just dice that up into chunks, small chunks, salsa-sized chunks. Now we'll go with our onion. And we want small pieces here, so very small pieces of onion. And maybe we'll get our corn. Let's see, a little cilantro. And we'll just give that a rough chop. And if you don't like cilantro, some people don't. I didn't used to. But if you don't like cilantro, you just leave it out. And then a serrano pepper. Once again, if you don't like the hot stuff, you don't have to use this. You can use just green pepper. And then I'm going to give that a very fine dice. And then give it a little salt. And then the squeeze of a lime or two. The lime and the salt, the lime juice and the salt, the acid and the salt just go together so well. Matter of fact, if you feel like it's too much lime juice, you just add a little salt. And if you feel like it's too salty, you add a little lime juice. It's magic. We'll go with that and see how it goes. Let's mix this up. It's beautiful. It's very pretty. I think we'll just go with that. Look at that. It goes so well together, everything. Ooh, got a little serrano though too. Our Tri-tip steak is now at 125 internal temperature, so the first part of the reverse sear is done. I haven't actually said the words reverse sear yet, but that's what we're doing here. We're cooking it inside to the temperature we want, or maybe just a few degrees shy of the temperature we want, and then we're gonna sear it on the outside after it's done on the inside, which is a way, you know, it's a non-traditional way for cooking a steak. I always think about a steak about just hot, 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 and then that's all the cooking you get. But this is called a reverse sear, in case you're not familiar. I know a lot, it's a real common term these days, but in case you're not familiar. So we're gonna pull that off, and it needs to rest. It needs to rest for about 10 minutes, which is just about enough time as we have. There you go. It doesn't look like much yet because it didn't have the full sear on it. We will put it under foil and let it rest for about, I'm gonna say 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we've got our pizza oven up to 400 degrees. That's about where we want it. So we're going ahead and put this in. This is our cast iron pan that we're using to sear the steak. We're going to head and put that in. Ooh, hot in there. To roughly the center of the oven. I've got welding gloves, I should get them out. We're gonna put that in there to roughly the center of the oven, let it preheat until it gets, so we want that cast iron good and hot, so that when we put that tri-tip steak on there, it gets a nice good sear. We wanna hear that sizzle. So we'll talk to you in about 10 minutes. The tri-tip steak is a cut that comes from the bottom tip of the sirloin. Some butchers just throw it in the hamburger pile, but it really is a delicious cut of meat all on its own. I was in our local meat market the other day and asked the butcher about tri-tips. He said he highly recommends them, but he says they don't always cut them that way. But when they do have them, he grabs one for himself. That's high praise coming from a butcher. And if you're going to hang out on my deck and listen to me talking about my butcher, you and I are probably at that point in our relationship where you ought to go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for your consideration. Well, our steak is done resting. It smells really good. And our pan in the pizza oven is at 450 degrees, so that's just about where we want it to be. We're gonna reach in there with one glove and set it on another welding glove. Yep, that's hot. That's hot. Okay, we're not gonna spend very much time with it out here, but we do want to hear that sizzle. Oh, that's good. Listen to that sizzle. And we're gonna go in there for about 4 minutes a side. We're gonna go 4 minutes on one side, then we'll flip it and 4 minutes on the other side. And by the time we get that done, it should be, well, it'll need another rest. It's very sleepy today. It needs a lot of resting time. So it'll need about another 5 or 10 minute rest when it does come out. Once again, working quickly. We're gonna pull that out of there. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that smells good. Wish you could smell it. I think this is gonna be good. Back in there for 4 minutes. In a previous life, we had an RV, and we spent a good amount of time visiting national parks with it. We got as far north as Yellowstone, as far west as the Grand Canyon, and as far south as Padre Island in Texas. COVID knocked the wind out of our sails a bit, but it was fun while it lasted. About now you're asking, Paul, what does any of that have to do with the tri-tip steak? On one of our last trips, as we were leaving Utah, entering Colorado, just past Grand Junction, there's a little town called Palisades. And there's a little RV park there with a beautiful view of the Grand Mesa right on the Colorado River. There was a food truck there one day, and the woman running the truck was from California, and she was serving Santa Maria-style tri-tip steak sandwiches. So we stopped and had lunch there as we were heading out to go sightseeing for the day. It was so good that we made a point to get back there in time for supper. We ate there twice that day. And that Santa Maria tri-tip steak sandwich is what we're trying to recreate here today. Time to pull it out. Look at that. It smells wonderful. I wish you had smell-o-vision. But once again, we'll let that sit and rest for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna cover it with foil, and we're gonna let it sit on this cooling rack so that it sits up off its own bark, and the bark doesn't get soggy. That bark that we work so hard for doesn't get soggy. Oh, it's so good. See you in 10 minutes, and then we're gonna have a sandwich. The tri-tip can be a little challenging to chew if you don't cut the meat across the grain. The tricky part is that the grain runs two ways. So as your first cut is to divide the steak in half right along the grain, and then you slice each individual piece across the grain there. So you can see the grain runs across here, and then it also runs this way. And so you cut it right here or against the grain, and then cut this other piece against the grain. That'll ensure you a good bite every time. We've had enough rest time. So let's just pull it off onto the, it's certainly firmed up. Okay, and we can see our middle line is right there, and our grains will cut this way, and then we'll cut this way. About a perfect medium rare, I'd say. And we'll cut them nice and thin because we're making a sandwich. Cuts like butter. We better just pull a piece out and have a taste to make sure it's all right. Look at that. Just pulls apart in your hand. Moist and tenderful and flavorful. That's really good. If I say so myself. That's really good. Okay, now we have our salsa that we made earlier, and a nice ciabatta bun. Well, that salsa looks and smells wonderful. Really worked out nice. And it's got a little kick to it, it's got a little zip to it, but by the time you put it in the context of a sandwich, it'll be just fine. Okay, let's get some of that steak on there. That's a pretty healthy serving. Okay, now we're just gonna layer on a little bit of our salsa and let it kind of artfully fall around onto the plate. There's that roast pineapple in there. And the corn. The corn is not traditional. The corn was not in the sandwich I had in Palisades, Colorado. But the corn is available right now and I love it, so we just decided, I've had corn salsa before out in the wild, and so we decided to include some. And there you go. That is a good looking sandwich. Well, here we are in our fading light, and we got a sandwich to eat, so lucky us. This is the Santa Maria style tri-tip steak sandwich, and it is just a thing of beauty. Very proud of this. The steak itself is really good, but I bet the sandwich is good too. That is really, really good. Oh, I mean, I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it this time. That's very tasty, and the flavors of the steak with the salt and pepper and garlic, and then the flavors of the salsa all just go together. Well, I think we did it again. This is another winner. This is really tasty. And you know, it takes me back to that day in 2019 where I ate 2 of these in one day, because that was where what the food truck had, and they were so good that it was well worth doing. So this has been Paul Plays with Fire. Thanks for watching.